Chris Jones has been underrated for his entire career because of the existence of Aaron Donald, who has been the clear best player at his position for so long. And so people just sort of group Chris Jones in with the second tier of defensive linemen, but he has the production and longevity of a Hall of Fame perennial top 3 at their position caliber of player. Over the last 4 seasons, Chris Jones has the second most pressures among defensive linemen, and through the first 2 weeks of 2022, he leads his position with 12 pressures and 2 sacks. He has incredible quickness for his size, and even though he doesn't have very long arms, he's really quick with his hands, and he does a great job varying his technique and rush strategy. There are 2 pass rushing moves that he gets most of his production from. The first one is the stutter swipe rip. So it starts with a jab step inside, a swipe with the outside arm on the outside shoulder, and then a rip move underneath the outside arm. So looking at this play against New York, the first step gets Will Hernandez to shift inside, and then by accelerating through the B gap and getting into this swipe move, he draws out the guard's outside arm, and this opens up the perfect opportunity to rip through. And then in the third quarter, he gets him to overcommit to the outside and get into his pass set a little bit off balance. So he takes advantage of that by using a bull rush instead of the rip. This is a great rep against Alex Leatherwood. Chris Jones just gave him absolute hell every time they matched up. So Leatherwood does a good job of protecting his chest, defending against the swipe move, and locking up Chris Jones's hands. But Chris Jones is just so quick and powerful. He raises up Leatherwood's arms and then throws them down, and he's able to get to the quarterback. And then this play is a great segue into his second move. He beats the right guard with the swipe, but the center comes in for the double team, and at this point Chris Jones is not in a good position to get through the second block because he's standing perfectly upright. Trey Hopkins is about a helmet's length lower than Chris Jones is right now, and so Jones just bench presses him up, seals him off with the inside hand, and wraps through with a swim move. This sort of thing is what separates people like Chris Jones, Fletcher Cox, and Jeffrey Simmons from equally athletic defensive linemen that are way less productive. He doesn't have just one gimmicky move that he uses a bunch, and he doesn't try to overdo it by throwing the entire kitchen sink at the offensive line every game. He has a couple of staple moves that he likes to go to, but then he has 5 or 6 counters and slight variations or tweaks to those moves. So right here, he isn't able to get through with the swipe, but instead of just stalemating, he reestablishes control of the offensive lineman. And then once he's got him in this position, Chris Jones can pretty much just do whatever he wants. He beat Zach Martin a couple times last season with this club swim move. And if you've watched the Cowboys offensive line, Zach Martin does not get beat very often. So these are 2 of the most high quality pass rushing reps that you'll find from a defensive tackle. The last thing I want to mention with Chris Jones is that the Chiefs had him play on the edge for the first 4 weeks of last season just because they didn't have anyone else to put there. And he was definitely a weakness in run defense. There's just no way you can really expect a 310-pound player to move sideline to sideline like that. But there was really no dip in production or efficiency as a pass rusher. The fact that he's able to get wins like this against high caliber offensive tackles like Jack Conklin, for example, there's just not many defensive linemen I've seen that have that sort of bend and acceleration to win in so many different spots.